بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Respected listeners, Alhamdulillah, we have now come to our last session of our series regarding the signs of Qiyamah, and we are now at the final stage. What will actually happen on that day? How will it happen? What exactly will plan out on that day itself? So as we mentioned before, that after Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam leaves this world, there will be a period of peace. Then you'll have the Ya'juj and Ma'juj, etc. All of that fitan, all of those trials and tribulations will take place. And once the Ya'juj and Ma'juj are gone, then again Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring peace. Everything will be going very, very nicely and smoothly. And what does the Prophet alayhi salam tell us at that time what would happen? Is that a wind will come, a pleasant, a very, very nice wind will come, and it will take the soul of every single believer at that time. مَنْ كَانَ فِي قَلْبِهِ مِثْقَالُ ذَرَّةٍ مِّنَ الْإِيمَانِ. Even an atom's weight of Iman, anyone that's in the earth that has that, this wind will come, pleasant wind, and it will take their soul away. And some of the narrations mention that min tahti abatihim, right from underneath their armpits, this wind will come and it will extract their souls in a very, very pleasant and easy way. And after this takes place, what would happen? فَيَبْقَى عَلَى الْأَرْضِ شِرَارُ النَّاسِ. The worst of people, they'll remain on the earth. The worst of people. And the Prophet ﷺ said, amongst the characteristics and the qualities of these people will be what? يَتَهَاجَرُونَ كَالْحُمُرِ. Just like donkeys and animals, they fulfill their desires outside on the roads and in the public without any concern or care for what is permissible and impermissible. These people will fulfill their desires like this, like animals, in the middle of the roads and in the middle of the streets. وَعَلَيْهِمْ تَقُومُ السَّاعَةِ. These group of people, after all goodness has left from the earth, all believers have gone out from the earth, the Qiyamah will take place on these specific people, on the worst of people that have remained behind. And subhanallah, there are different ahadith in the books of signs of Qiyamah, the description of these people. Not only would they be engaging in these types of acts in public, but also in the narration of Nu'aym bin Hammad, it says, يَسْتَغْنِي الرِّجَالُ بِالرِّجَالِ وَالنِّسَاءُ بِالنِّسَاءِ. Which basically means that the menfolk, they will be happy with menfolk, with males. And the females, they will suffice themselves with what? With females. And subhanallah, what are we seeing today? When this time will come, لا تقوم الساعة حتى لا يقال في الأرض Allah, Allah. This will be such a time that in the entire earth, there will not even be a person to say the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imagine. If you think about today, right now, at any given moment, how many thousands of people are taking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name? If you consider the different time zones in the entire world right now, adhan is probably taking place all the time. Adhan, iqama, somebody's making wudu, they're reciting the du'as, somebody's sleeping, they're reciting the du'as, somebody's praying, all the different time zones. At any given moment, there are thousands of people remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But imagine, on that day, Qiyamah will be such a time, not a single person will take the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to say, right, some people have mentioned, so to say, it's as if When you take the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're securing Qiyamah from taking place. It's not going to happen as long as there are people who remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they take His name. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, there will be no one to take the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The pious people, the believers, every single one of them, they will be uplifted. And before this, we learned that Rasulullah ﷺ said amongst the signs is what? Knowledge will be uplifted. Knowledge will be uplifted. So first, the people who have knowledge, Allah will slowly take them away from the earth. And then finally, at that last moment in time, that rihan tayyibah, that pleasant wind, is going to take every single believer that was there. And around that time, what else will happen? يُقْبَضُ الْقُرْآنِ. The Qur'an-i-Kareem will also be uplifted. That means every single soul which had Qur'an inside of it, the Qur'an will be uplifted from the souls. Every mushaf, every book that had Qur'an written inside, the Qur'an will no longer appear inside there. It'll be a period of extreme decline. Everything going downhill. The name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala erased. The book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala erased. The name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being taken. The people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything erased. Going in an extreme downhill direction. And around this time, a person might ask, what would happen to Makkah Mukarramah and what would happen to Medina Munawwarah? The two greatest places of Islam and the places which every believer, their heart is attached to these places. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that before Qiyamah will take place, Hajj will be stopped. That's the first thing. Hajj will be stopped. Nobody will perform Hajj anymore. Once Hajj stops and nobody will perform Hajj, eventually what will happen? The Kaaba, the Baytullah will be destroyed. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, يُخَرِّبُ الْكَعْبَةِ ذُو السُّوَيْقَتَيْن مِنَ الْحَبَشَةِ. The person will come from Habasha, Ethiopia, somewhere in the African region. The person will come, and what will he do? He will destroy the Kaaba. And the Prophet ﷺ said, كَأَنِّي أَنظُرُ إِلَيْهِ. It's as if I am looking at him right now. It's as if I see him. And the Prophet ﷺ described what that person would look like. And he said, أَفْحَجْ, which means the person will be like bow-legged. In other words, the shins would be very, very separated from each other. He says, it's as if I can see him right now. I can see him right now, and what is he doing? Hajaran, hajaran. Brick by brick, I can see him demolishing the Kaaba. So that's what will happen towards the ends of times, respected listeners. That, subhanAllah, you see today that people will literally, they will save up money their entire lives. They'll work 12 hours a day. They'll give their blood, sweat and tears to save up for their entire lives, just so that they could go and make tawaf of the Kaaba. That beautiful Kaaba that people will give their lives for, that Kaaba will be destroyed. And what will happen to Medina Munawwarah? The Prophet ﷺ, he entered the Masjid Nabawi, and the Prophet ﷺ, he informed the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum that this masjid, this beautiful city of Medina, one day it will be deserted. One day, Medina Munawwarah is going to be deserted. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that towards the ends of time there will be two people from the Qabila, from the tribe of Muzayna. These two people, they will undertake the journey to Medina Munawwarah. And this is after everything has been demolished, nobody's living there, everybody has deserted the city. So two people, for whatever reason, they're going to travel towards Medina Munawwarah. And these two people, they're shepherds. And what will happen? They're carrying on with their cattle and their sheep, and finally they will enter Medina. Once they enter Medina, what will they see? Oh my God, this place is completely deserted. There's nobody living here. There's nobody living. There's no habitation. There's no water. There's no crops. There's nothing that we could survive off of. And remember, when people travel long distances, especially in the past where there was not a lot of, not every place had people living. So what would happen? You would carry a limited amount of rations and resources, and once you would reach a civilization, you could get more things. So these people, when they come to Medina Munawwara, what will they see? There's nothing here. There's no people. There's no civilization. And they're not going to have anything with them. So eventually what will happen? They will reach Thaniyatul Wada', an area in the outskirts of Medina where the Prophet ﷺ entered from there as well. They're going to just die right there. Kharra. Kharra. They're just going to fall and collapse, literally. They will fall right there and they will collapse on their faces because there's absolutely no way to live, no way to survive in Medina at that time. And the Prophet ﷺ also mentioned, لَتُتْرَكَنَّ الْمَدِينَةِ عَلَى أَحْسَنِ مَا كَانَتْ. Medina Munawwara will be deserted in the best way that it was. To such an extent that a dog or a wolf will enter the masjid of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam and it will urinate on the pillars of the masjid and on the mimbar of Masjid Nabawi. And the people asked at that time, what about all the fruits and the crops of Medina Munawwara? It's such a thriving place. There's so much vegetation, there are so many crops, there are so many fruits. What's going to happen to all of this, Ya Rasulullah? The Prophet ﷺ said, all of those things will be for the birds and for the beasts of the land, for the animals. Now, brothers and sisters, if you think about this, like I said, people will spend everything that they have worked for to reach Medina Munawwara. Just to go in front of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and give your salam to the Prophet alayhi salam. For some people, they will give anything for that. They will give the whole world for that. When these times come, that's what the condition of the masjid would be. Today you'll see people literally 3-4 hours, they will wait. They will wait in the Rawdah. They will wait to be granted entry to make salam to the Prophet ﷺ. 3-4 hours, not a problem at all. Spending hundreds of dollars for your visa, going through the patience of travel, no problem at all. I'm going to make salam to my Prophet ﷺ. And slowly but surely, things will go on a decline until this is the situation that we will see. And subhanAllah, even today, you will see how people's mentality is slowly taking us to this position, where everybody is focused on money, everybody is focused on the world, everybody is focused on dunya. And anything that is related to Islam, people do not show interest. It doesn't make sense to them. Why would we spend so much money going all the way to Medina Munawwara when you can just read durood at home? You can make salam from home. Why do you need to go all the way over there? Right? Why should you go to the masjid? You can perform salah at home. Why should you listen to a halaqah? Why should you go to a halaqah? Why should you go and learn? It's not going to benefit you. It's not going to make you any money. Invest your time and your efforts into something that's going to be actually beneficial for you. This type of mentality, these types of thoughts, eventually that's what it's going to lead to, is the shirarul ard, the worst of the people, the worst of the worst. وَعَلَيْهِمْ تَقُومُ السَّاعَةِ. And upon these people, that is where Qiyamah will take place upon them. Finally, towards the end, once these people are living, there will be a big fire. And what will this fire do? This fire will push the people towards Sham, towards the greater Syria region. And once everybody is pushed towards Sham because of this fire, Qiyamah will take place on them, on the grounds of Syria and Sham. So as mentioned about this big fire, this is the last of the 10 signs which the Prophet ﷺ mentioned. This fire will literally push the people all the way until their destination in Syria. تَقِيلُ مَعَهُمْ حَيْثُ قَالُوا. Wherever these people sleep, the fire will sleep with them. Wherever these people will take a nap in the day, the fire will also take a nap with them in the day. Meaning wherever they are, the fire is going to be on their trail until it pushes them, pushes them, pushes them. It's going to take them all the way to the mahshar, all the way towards Syria, where eventually Qiyamah will actually take place over there. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he taught us that Qiyamah will take place so suddenly that a person will take a morsel of food and they're about to put it in their mouth, and Qiyamah will take place. That person will not have the ability to put the food into his mouth. That's how suddenly it will come. A person will be fixing his land for his animals or whatever. And once Qiyamah takes place, he will not be able to get his job done. لا تأتيكم إلا بغتة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Qiyamah, it's not going to take place, it's not going to come except suddenly. It's going to happen very, very fast. And from this series, that's one of the things that we learned, that even the signs of Qiyamah, they happen very, very suddenly, one after the other. It's like you take a bottle of water and you pour the water out. What's going to happen? One drop follows the next, follows the next, follows the next. Next thing you know, the bottle is finished. That's how Qiyamah takes place. So don't ever think Qiyamah is later on. We still have time. Dajjal is not here, Mahdi is not here. So many signs we have not seen. No. They will happen one after the other, very, very quickly and in succession. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, it's not going to happen except very, very suddenly. And we mentioned before, very early on in the series, Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, he mentions a very beautiful statement, which basically puts every human being in the place of Qiyamah. Which basically means every human being, they will experience Qiyamah. It will happen upon them. What he means is, أَنَّ مَنْ مَاتْ فَقَدْ قَامَتْ قِيَامَتُهُ. The person who dies, as soon as your eyes close and your ruh, your soul leaves your body, your Qiyamah has just took place. Your Qiyamah has just taken place. Because you have now left this temporary world and you're entering the everlasting world of the next. And that's exactly what Qiyamah will do to people. The guy's eating, he's in this temporary world, suddenly Qiyamah takes place, now he's in the next realm. Right? So this is the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala works. One of the problems that we see with people is we mistake Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's favors and His bounties. A lot of people who are involved in sin, they're involved in transgression, right? What happens is, the bounties that they receive, they mistaken this for what? They mistaken this as, I'm successful. Allah loves me. I'm doing everything right. Nothing can stop me. I have the world in my hands. Look, I have money, I have my car, I have a job, I have a family. Nothing can stop me. Everything is going smooth. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us in the Quran, سَنَسْتَدْرِجُهُمْ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. We are giving them istidraj. This terminology, istidraj, is very important. It means, for some people, Allah doesn't warn them right away. Allah doesn't send them warnings right away. Allah keeps giving them. Allah keeps giving them bounty after bounty after bounty. So they live in their negligence, years and years and years and years. And then suddenly what happens? With one grasp, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes them. And when Allah grasps you all at once like that, that seizure of Allah, that grasping of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very, very severe. And suddenly the punishment comes on a person. Whereas, brothers and sisters, if you get tested sometimes, you get sick, you have some family issues, you have some financial issues, whatever the case may be, these trials and tribulations, sometimes they're warnings to us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes they're warnings to us that, look, you could do better. Turn towards me. Come closer to me. Think about your life. Think about your lifestyle. Think about what you're doing. Turn towards me. Don't turn towards this world. Whatever you're looking for, I have it. The happiness you're looking for, it's with me. It's not with dunya. It's not with that house. It's not with that car. It's not with all that worldly success. Whatever you're looking for, I have the keys to that. Turn towards me and I will be the one to give it to you. So a lot of times what happens, if you think, man, I'm living good, nothing is wrong, I don't need to change my lifestyle, I don't need to do anything. What happens to those same people? Suddenly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grasps them and takes them, and that is not a good case for anyone. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that there will be 2 blows of the trumpet. On the first blow of the trumpet, وَيَوْمَ يُنْفَخُ فِي الصُّورِ فَفَزِعَ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَّا مَنْ شَاءَ اللَّهِ. When the trumpet is blown, what is the trumpet being blown? This is the sign of Qiyamah taking place. When the trumpet is blown, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has appointed this task to Israfil alayhi salam. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned, كَيْفَ أَنْعَمْ. How could I be at ease? How could I be relaxed? When the angel that has been given the trumpet, he has placed his lips on the trumpet, and he's lowered his forehead, and he's just waiting for the call to blow. How could I be at peace and ease? How could I be in negligence of the akhirah? He has his mouth on the trumpet, he's just waiting. Imagine. Right? In our perspective, imagine someone puts a gun to your forehead and they have the hand on the trigger. The finger is on the trigger. Would you be at ease at that time? Of course not. One snap of the finger and what? Your life is gone. That's how Qiyamah is. Israfil has his lips on the trumpet already. It's just a matter of when that commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes. When that trumpet is blown, what would happen? The other narrations mention, not only has he put his lips onto the trumpet, but from the time that Allah gave him this command, the eyes of Israfil alayhi salam have not blinked. Because that's how focused he is. That's how serious he is. He's just waiting. If I blink, I might miss that call by a millisecond. I don't want to miss it even by a millisecond. As soon as Allah gives the command, it's going to happen right away. From that time, his lips are there and his eyes have not even blinked. With the first blowing of the trumpet, what will happen? فَزِعَ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Whoever's in the heavens, whoever's in the earth, everybody will pass away. Everybody will pass away. إِلَّا مَنْ شَاءَ اللَّهِ. Except for a category of people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has desired that He will exempt them from this ruling at that time. Right? And from amongst these people, there's a lot of opinions that are mentioned by the scholars of hadith. But for example, some say at that time it'll be Jibreel alayhi salam, Mikail alayhi salam, Israfil alayhi salam, he's the one that has the trumpet, the Hamalatul Arsh, the angels who are carrying the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These few creations and angels, they will be left at that time. And many muhaddithin say, at that time, the souls of the shuhada will be kept alive. The souls of the martyrs, those who gave their lives for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at that time Allah will not give them death, when every other person will be given death. And then what happens? One by one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will command, take Jibreel alayhi salam, take Mikail alayhi salam, take this one, take the angels that are holding the throne, until finally, it'll just be the angel of death and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take his soul as well. Allah will take his soul as well. لِمَنِ الْمُلْكُ الْيَوْمِ لِمَنِ الْمُلْكُ الْيَوْمِ. O people, whether you're in the heavens or whether you're in the earth, you thought you're something. You thought yourself to be bold. You thought yourself to be successful. You thought that you had domination in the land. لِمَنِ الْمُلْكُ الْيَوْمِ. For who is the dominion today? For who does dominion belong to today? Imagine, everyone is put to sleep. Everyone is put to sleep. The only everlasting Al-Hayy, Alladhi la yamut, the ever-living that never dies. The ever-living that has always been there. Al-Awwalu, فَلَيْسَ قَبْلَهُ شَيْءٍ. He was the first, before him there was nothing. وَالْآخِرْ لَيْسَ بَعْدَهُ شَيْءٍ. He is the last, after him there will be nothing. كُلُّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ. Everybody that is on the face of the earth, they will expire. وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ. The countenance of your Lord, that's the only thing that will remain. ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. The great Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the majestic, the glorious, besides him, nothing will remain. And the announcement will be made. لِمَنِ الْمُلْكُ الْيَوْمِ. Who can answer now? Nobody can answer. لِلَّهِ الْوَاحِدِ الْقَهَّارِ. Dominion and kingdom of the earth belongs to who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Qahhar, the dominant one. He is in control. Then what will happen? Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, eventually, He will instruct Israfil alayhi salam to give the second blowing of the trumpet. The second blowing of the trumpet. With the second blowing of the trumpet, ثُمَّ نُفِخَ فِيهِ أُخْرَى فَإِذَا هُمْ قِيَامٌ يَنْظُرُونَ. With the second blowing of the trumpet, what will happen? Suddenly, everybody will be standing and they will be looking. Imagine. Billions of years you've been in the qabr, you've been in the grave. With the second blowing of the trumpet, you're finally going to wake up from that nap. You're going to wake up from that nap. And you're going to see the plains of Qiyamah. And just like a person who is alive, you will be able to see and experience what is happening on the plains of Qiyamah. يَتَعَارَفُونَ. People will recognize each other. Oh, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so. They'll recognize each other. But eventually the point in time will come, يَوْمَئِذٍ شَأْنٌ يُغْنِي لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مِّنْهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ شَأْنٌ يُغْنِي. Every person will have such a condition on their head, it will suffice them from worrying about anybody else. يَفِرُّ الْمَرْءُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ وَأُمِّهِ وَأَبِيهِ وَصَاحِبَتِهِ وَبَنِيهِ. You'll run away from your brother, you'll run away from your sister, you'll run away from your mother, you'll run away from your father, you'll run away from your sons, you'll run away from your daughters, you'll run away from everyone. Today, Qiyamah, nafsi, nafsi. I'm worried about myself. Not that a person is greedy, not that a person is selfish, but the horrors of Qiyamah will be such that nobody will be worried about the other person except for themselves. When the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that on Qiyamah, people will be resurrected without any clothing. حُفَاةً عُرَاةً غُرْلًا. Barefoot, no clothes, uncircumcised, the people will be resurrected. So Aisha radiallahu anha, she asked the Prophet ﷺ that, look, like especially a woman who has haya, she's asking this question that, Ya Rasulullah, Qiyamah and like all of creation is resurrected and we're not going to have clothes? Like, how is that going to work out? The Prophet ﷺ said, Al-amru ashaddu min dhalik, aw kama qal. The Prophet ﷺ explained to her, the matter on that day is worse than that. It's worse than what you think. Nobody's going to dare lift their eyes to look at somebody else's awrah, to look at somebody else's body. People will be so afraid, people will be so concerned, people will be in such a predicament that unclothed people will not matter to you. You're worried about yourself at that time. وَتَرَى النَّاسَ سُكَارَى وَمَا هُمْ بِسُكَارَى. You will see the people drunk, but they're not drunk. وَلَكِنَّ عَذَابَ اللَّهِ شَدِيدٌ. The punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is severe. When a person is drunk, what happens? They can't walk straight, they can't look straight. They're completely bewildered, they're confused. They don't know where they're going. Imagine Qiyamah, you wake up after that long nap. You don't know what just hit you. You're bewildered, you're confused. عُمْيٌ وَبُكْمٌ وَصُمَّ. Some people, they'll be resurrected deaf, blind, unable to speak, unable to hear. لِمَا حَشَرْتَنِي أَعْمَى وَقَدْ كُنْتُ بَصِيرًا. Oh Allah, why have you resurrected me blind, whereas I was able to see when I was alive? قَالَ كَذَلِكَ أَتَتْكَ آيَاتُنَا فَنَسِيتَهَا وَكَذَلِكَ الْيَوْمَ تُنْسَى. My verses were recited upon you, and you forgot about them. My reminders came to you, you forgot about my reminders. You turned your back to my verses. Just like you turned your back and you forgot, and you paid no heed and no attention. Today, كَذَلِكَ الْيَوْمَ تُنْسَى. You will be forgotten about today as well. Backs will be turned to you, just like you turned your back to those things which mattered. That's how Qiyamah will take place. Everybody will be in fear. The women that are pregnant, whether they're 2 months, 3 months, 9 months, the severity of Qiyamah will be so hard upon them that they will give birth to those children automatically right away, irrespective of if they're ready or not. The children, mashallah, nice, youth, beautiful. Qiyamah will be so severe, their hair will turn white. 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, white and gray hair from the horrors and severity of Qiyamah. Young people, 14, 15, 16, in the prime of their youth, such fear on Qiyamah, their hair will turn white. يَوْمَ تُبَدَّلُ الْأَرْضُ غَيْرَ الْأَرْضِ وَالسَّمَاوَاتِ. It is the day the earth and the skies, they will be changed. تُبَدَّل. Tabdeel is going to happen. It's going to completely have a transformation. It's going to change into a different earth and a different sky. It's not going to be the same. The sky will start to break apart. The sky will start to fall apart. إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انشَقَّتْ إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا. When the earth starts to shake, give its earthquake. وَأَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أَثْقَالَهَا. The inside of the earth will throw out its burden. Imagine the earth throwing up. Can't even imagine. The sky breaking down on top of you. What horror will there be on that day? And through all of this, Qiyamah will have different stages. So you'll have, for example, the stage when you're first resurrected. And now you're in a state of confusion. You don't know where you're going. You don't know what's going on. And then eventually what happens? You're afraid of judgment. You're afraid of being taken to task for your deeds. But the whole situation of Qiyamah is going to be so hard that eventually people will start making dua. They'll say, Ya Allah, please pass the judgment on us now. Living in this condition, living in this Qiyamah, it's too much for us. Just pass the judgment on us now. Imagine. And that is when the people will go to all the Anbiya alayhimus salam. They will go to Adam alayhis salam. They will go to Nuh alayhis salam. They will go to Musa alayhis salam. They will go to all the prophets and say, please intercede on our behalf. Ask Allah to make this easy for us. Ask Allah to have mercy on us. Intercede on our behalf. All of the prophets, they will say, today we can't help you. Look at the sky. Look at the earth. We can't help you today. Nafsi, nafsi, today I'm worried about myself. One by one they'll go to the different Anbiya till finally they will come to Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When they come to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he will make dua. And he will praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with such words that nobody has ever praised Allah with those words before. Imagine what type of words those must be. Such words, nobody has ever praised Allah with those words before. He will read, he will fall into sajda. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell him, "Irfa' ra'sak, sal tu'ta', washfa' tushaffa'." Raise your head, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Lift your head. Ask, and you will be granted. Intercede, and your intercession will be accepted. This stage of Qiyamah, this position where the Prophet ﷺ will intercede, this is called Maqami Mahmud. Al-Maqamul Mahmud. And when you make dua after adhan, that's part of what you're reading. وَبَعَثْهُ مَقَامًا مَحْمُودًا. This is that position of shafa'ah, of intercession, which we make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts that shafa'ah and that intercession of the Prophet ﷺ. As we mentioned, Qiyamah will have stages. There will be a period of waiting. There will be periods of extreme heat. There will be periods of extreme cold and darkness. Different stages and halat and conditions will happen on the people on Qiyamah. So, for example, there will be a period of darkness where nobody will be able to see anything. But guess what will happen for the believers on that day? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them nur. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them light. Imagine if you guys ever been on a camping trip, extremely dark. You take out your hand, you can't even see your hand, that's how dark it is. The only thing you want at that time is what? If only I had a flashlight and I could see. The believer, his flashlight will be his iman, his a'mal, his deeds, his Qur'an, his or her ibadah, reciting the Qur'an. That will all be flashlights that will allow them to see on Qiyamah. And it's mentioned that people who are close to good believers, some believers, the light which Allah will give them will light up the entire roads. So other people, it's mentioned in certain ahadith and narrations, some people, their light will be like a pinky. That's it. Maybe when, they made some Allahu Akbar here or there sometimes, right? And some people, it will be like qamatul rajul, 6 feet, about the height of a human being. And other people, as far as you could see, the roads will just be lit up. So what happens? If you're close with these believers and you're in good company and you stick with the right people, what happens? People will join them. Oh man, that guy got good light. We can see the path. Let's join behind him. And people will follow along. And on that day, what will happen? The hypocrites, they will try and tag along behind the believers to benefit from their light, to benefit from the nur so they could see the path. نَقْتَبِسْ مِن نُورِكُمْ. We want to take some of your nur. We want to be able to see the way. And then what will happen? قِيلَ رُجِعُوا وَرَاءَكُمْ فَالْتَمِسُوا نُورًا. You want nur? Go behind you and look over there. There's nur. Look behind you. You know behind you? Yeah, over there. There's light over there. فَضُرِبَ بَيْنَهُمْ بِسُورٍ لَهُ بَابٍ. As soon as they turn around, bam, the wall is going to be constructed, which is going to separate them from the believers. Right? So kind of as like a mockery out of them, that these people that turn their backs on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and on the Prophet alayhi salam, they're trying to benefit from this light. You had the opportunity to benefit from the light. You had that opportunity during the lifetime. So subhanallah, any ibadah that you do, you can kind of think of it in this perspective. You're basically charging your flashlight for Qiyamah. That's what you're doing. The 15 minutes that you read Quran every day, you're charging your flashlight on Qiyamah, so to say. The 20 minutes that you do dhikr, you're charging your flashlight. And the more charged your battery is, that's how strong your light will be. Then you'll also have the moments of qisas, where everybody will get revenge. Imagine, you harm someone with your tongue, you harm someone with your hands. Every person will get revenge in whatever way they were wronged. So much so, Rasulullah ﷺ mentioned that an animal that had no horns, which was attacked by an animal that had horns, Allah will give that animal horns, take the horns away from that one, and he will get his revenge. He'll hit him on the head, and he'll get his revenge. Imagine, even the animals will get their revenge. How about people that we have harmed? People that we have taken, their rights. And like this, stage by stage, Qiyamah will take place. So there will be the stage where there will be the mizan, the measuring of the scales for the deeds of the people. There will be the sirat, which is the bridge which people will cross upon. There will be the area where there's going to be the hawd, the great pond, which the Prophet ﷺ, he will give a special water from this pond of Kawthar. He will give it to the believers to drink from on the day of Qiyamah. Further on, with regards to these stages and what will happen to the people when the sun is a mile away. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned the sun will be a mile away. Now some people will say, okay, scientifically, if the sun is 1 mile away, what's going to happen? Everything is going to melt. What does Allah say in the Quran? يَوْمَ تُبَدَّلُ الْأَرْضُ غَيْرَ الْأَرْضِ. Melting, freezing, these are all in Allah's qudrah. Nothing melts without Allah's permission. The sun don't shine without Allah's permission. Nothing can freeze without Allah's permission. Allah changes this earth into another type of earth, and He will make the sun to be allowed to be a mile away. And brothers and sisters, people will sweat. You sweat right now. How many of you guys have been for Hajj and Umrah? When you go around the time of Salatul Dhuhr and you're walking to the masjid, what happens? I don't know about you guys, but I'm drenched from Salatul Dhuhr. I have to come back and change my clothes. Imagine Qiyamah, sun is a mile away. depending on a person's sins, depending on how much you've drowned yourselves in sins. Some people, their sweat will be to their ankles. Some people, the sweat will be to their knees. Some people, they'll be sweating to their hips, and some people will literally be drowning in their sweat. And on Qiyamah, فَيَذَرُهَا قَاعًا صَفْصَفًا لَا تَرَى فِيهَا عِوَجًا وَلَا أَمْتًا. Qiyamah is going to be a plain land, completely barren. No mountains, no buildings, no nothing. No valleys, no hills, no complete, desolate, barren land. And the sun will be sparking a person's face. At that time, under the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's throne, under the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's arsh, there will be 7 categories of people. Allah will comfortably grant them His shade under the throne, يَوْمَ لَا ظِلَّ إِلَّا ظِلُّ, when there will be no shade except the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's throne. So inshallah, in our next series, which is going to start next Friday inshallah, we're going to talk about a little more on these stages of Qiyamah, and also the 7 people, the 7 categories of people that will be under Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's shade of the throne on that day.